Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. Take the burden off your team with seasonal owner support services. Today, our two presenters are Steve Masters, our Vice President of Product and Operations for the Business Relations side, and Corey Scott, our Senior VP of Sales for the Business Relations team. Now, before we get them kicked off and presenting to you, there's just a couple of things I want to let you know about. First of all, we will have time for question and answer at the end. And so if you look over on your GoToWebinar console, there's an area where you can actually type in questions and submit them to us, and we can answer those at the end. So, as we're presenting the content here, something sticks out to you, you want to know more, just feel free to type that in, and we'll take care of those questions. And also, this session will be recorded, and we will be sending a follow-up email with the replay link as well. So you will receive a copy of this replay probably tomorrow in your inbox, so just keep an eye out for that. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Corey and Steve to kick us off.
All right, thanks, Susie. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. This is Steve Masters speaking, so glad to have the opportunity to walk through the services that we're going to cover here today with you. And as Susie mentioned, Corey Scott is also on, who leads the sales team within business relations. So we'll be kind of tag teaming here today. But I do want to thank you again for having this conversation with us and joining us today. Super critical time that we're in right now. Obviously, we're in the very thick of the tax season. If you haven't looked at your calendar or maybe read your messages lately, owners are active, right? This is certainly their time of the year to make the presence felt with a number of questions. So really the goal here is to kind of talk through some of the ways that we can help with this high pressure season and be able to take, again, as the title says, take some of that burden off your team and hopefully allow you to focus on maybe perhaps more productive tasks while still delivering world-class services to your owners. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And as we go through this, as Susie mentioned, if you have questions, feel free to write them down. We'd be happy to cover those as we go, or at the end of the presentation, rather. But was hoping to just kind of recap here what we're hoping everybody learns today, right? So the key to this, as you may all know, because quite a few of you took the time here this afternoon to join us, is understanding the problem of doing it yourself. Everybody's very busy. We'll be talking through, kind of what that looks like today. But everybody's busy with their own kind of day job, if you will. And as I mentioned, this time of year is a high touch time. And this isn't just a 1 month thing or 2 month thing, but this is really something that runs for us starting early in the fourth quarter as we prepare to print and mail 1099s to now at this point looking to interact with owners and be able to support questions coming in. So understanding what are the problems we're facing today, what services are provided. We'll talk through a little bit about both the call center as well as our print mail services. Although the focus today is on interacting with owners and supporting specifically 1099 tax season type questions, keep in mind as we walk through this, these are services that we actually offer all year round, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that, but want to kind of put that seed in your head as we get going. And then we'll roll into exactly what it is we do during this tax time, how the services work. We'll walk through, again, some of the details there, cover a little bit and finish up with maybe what some of our current customers are saying. This is a service that we are very seasoned in that we've been doing this for many years, a lot of experience, a lot of great knowledge learned over those years that you all get to take advantage of when you use us. And then I mentioned at the end, we'll wrap up with a little bit of Q&A, make sure we answer any questions that may be out there. So Corey, you want to maybe kind of kick off with teeing up the problem that we have?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And thanks again, just to iterate, Steve, appreciate everybody joining the call this afternoon. When we really kind of focus at the starting point of all this, right, from a lot of the information and stats we've gathered, there's roughly that 8 to 12 million mineral right owners, that we're dealing with. And I think we could all agree that as generations keep going on and people keep passing those mineral interests to their grandkids, that's just going to exponentially grow. So we obviously have a huge sector of individuals that, Enverus, but also you as the oil and gas operator, are having to manage, right? So we know that whether it's just on a monthly basis of working with owners when it comes to mailing the appropriate documentation to them, whether it comes acquisitions and mergers with other companies, or even just tax time. As Steve said, we have a lot of uptick in people inquiring on these services around this time, because when you're dealing with 1099 and tax season, obviously that's when we see an influx of owners, inquiring with questions, more documentation needing to be provided, more owner calls and things like that. So definitely when you're working with not just a few hundred folks, but, in the millions, definitely every company is going to feel that burden as you're going through kind of your month-end tax time, your year-end tax time, as we know everybody's really focused on right now. Those owners, as important as they are to you, and their questions are very important to them, it definitely can impede on your workload each day, and knowing that volume can increase and flux as the days go on, right? So with the huge, large volume of owners, those are something, everybody feels the pain of at this time, but we obviously have the obligation to ensure we're meeting the needs of those owners. Steve, you want to go to the next slide? There we go. So kind of what we've seen on this side and talking with customers as well, usually you're going to see an increase up to 3 times, sometimes more, during this tax season, right? And I think we could all agree a lot of the questions from your owners are going to be just those tier 1 level inquiries that I like to call, when am I going to receive my 1099? I didn't receive my 1099. Where's my statement? We know the questions can go on and on, but these are just critical, documents and things we have to make sure we're providing the owners to make sure, we're keeping them happy. And I know that's something as the operator with your relationship with your owners, we want to make sure we're achieving that. It's definitely, what we've seen. There's different types of owner types up there, but your relationship with your owners is really the most important partnership that we have in the oil and gas sector today. So if we can manage and address any owner concerns, keeping them happy, whether that's going to be owner calls to make sure it's that front line of information, making sure we get the documents delivered to them. These are things that we have to make sure we do in a timely fashion, right?
And Corey, just to kind of add to that, it is interesting, right? Because we're in the thick of this the season and have done this now for several years running, that it really kind of goes beyond even tax questions, as you kind of can see there. A lot of owners use this as that time of year to kind of true up, if you will, and make sure that addresses are correct. If they have ACH deposits, that those are correct as well, or that maybe they register for that service on a first-time basis. So it really kind of runs the gamut, right? And the beauty of this of our services is simply the fact that we've kind of been there, done that, kind of seen it all. It reminds me of actually an insurance commercial on TV, right? We know a thing or two because we've seen it. So one of the things, want to talk through the pressure of the season and how we can really kind of help facilitate, really enhance and augment your services, right? So this, we have within the business relations group within Enverus, really a breadth of solutions that really kind of touch on a couple different points, everything from self-service portals, full service print mail capabilities, and then of course, a very experienced call center services that we'll walk through. And for those of you who may not know, we are going through a kind of a transition here where we have legacy OilDex owner relations sites that are up. Of course, we have the acquisition and now the partnership with the EnergyLink platform on a go-forward basis. But basically, we have 2 separate portals today, depending on which one you all choose to use, that serve owners and really in a real-time basis, right? So these are portals, whether it's again EnergyLink, it's the owner relations OilDex portals that are out there. We really kind of help you help from an owner standpoint. They're self-service portals that allow owners to come in be able to view their statements, be able to download if you host 1099 statements on either of the platforms. And they, if they need to get a second copy, maybe they lost the one that arrived in the mail, they can download those 1099 statements from the portal. They can go back and review prior month histories in terms of the revenue statements and other details that you may provide on their portals as well. But the goal there is it's, again, representing your brand, representing your data in a manner, again, that's in a self-service mode. So that portal is available year-round, of course, again, on the EnergyLink side and or owner relations side from OilDecks. In addition to that, though, so of course we have the self-service capabilities. What we're talking about here today are really encompass both print and mail, as well as call center. If you're not familiar with our what we call these two under the managed services header, these are basically services that you pay only for what you use. You're not paying for staff that is not actively engaged or involved with owners, which is nice. So from a cost standpoint, this gives you the opportunity to really kind of either augment existing teams that you may have, and or if you're looking to outsource these capabilities or work with a provider that has kind of the scale and the efficiencies that we offer, really is a cost-effective option for you. So from a print mail standpoint, we print obviously 1099s. That's what we're here to talk about today. A little bit late, if you haven't mailed out your 1099s by now, maybe we need to talk, but certainly for a go forward in 2020, keep us in mind. We've got the ability and have done, literally millions of 1099 documents over the past several years. But we also can interact with owners from a print mail standpoint year round, right? So whether that's handling revenue statements, JIB statements, any type of owner communications, acquisitions, divestitures, anything really that you can think of from a print and mail standpoint, we offer services for that today. And currently mailing out, again, over 5 million different pages per year, over 140 different clients that we service for all types of services. Again, everything from recurring mailings to simply a one-time or an annual mailing like a 1099. So all of that capability is in-house for us. We have the ability both to print in-house, physically, literally in-house here in Austin, Texas, or depending on the scale of the solution, we have a number of trusted partners that allow us to print both the actual financial check instrument, but also, again, all the various statement types, letters, forms, etc. So completely self-service team, or self-contained team, I should say, from a print mail standpoint, and one that's ready to help you with really anything that comes up, but specifically at tax time. And then we also have the call center, right? So the call center is a large group of U.S.-based agents that have several years each within oil and gas accounting experience, land experience, title experience. So these are individuals that we have found from within the industry that had actual hands-on experience both with operators and engaging with owners. And brought them together to basically, create a nationwide network of agents to be able to support your owners under your brand. So when your owners call the call center, we represent your brand to them. They think they're just talking to you as an operator direct. And we have that service available Monday to Friday from 8 to 5 Central Time. So again, when the owners call and speak to a live person, we have greater than 95% of all calls are answered live. So they're not going off to voicemail, but we typically are able to get to them live and be able to answer their questions, and then have a resolution rate of greater than 80%. So when you think about it from an escalation standpoint or any other kind of need for you to engage, we're taking the vast majority of those calls, first-time calls, answering them effectively on that call before we ever have to again engage with you on the operator side. So this service, these call center agents, really ensure the highest level of service and consistent quality across the board. All calls are recorded, full reporting back to you in terms of what types of volumes we're seeing, what types of calls, as well as resolutions that are going on. super critical during, again, this really kind of hectic time, in that we can take the load, that burden off your shoulders, put it on our experienced team, and really do a great job of representing your brand and satisfying the owner needs. So, so all three services really kind of act as a complete owner relations solution. Again, everything from self-service to the print mail to the call center, we've got you covered. And what we do with that, how we handle things for you, kind of think of it as it's not just a service that you sign up for, but we actually offer complete project management of your projects. So if you think about it, again, in the context of 1099 or in tax season, all of the statement preparation, we take that on and working with you. So we have a dedicated project team that will inform you of key milestone dates as they come up, work with you to onboard your tax files, either directly submitted to us, and or if you're working currently on the EnergyLink platform as an example, we can pull that data directly in to the print mail team for action. But we'll keep you apprised, throughout projects of the exact status, where we are, and next steps, and then as well as kind of the tracking through the season as well. I mentioned on the owner calls, any email queries we get, all of that again is handled through the experienced team that we have and reported back to you on a weekly basis. So again, you're always aware of how many calls are coming in. That's key because, by the way, you're only paying for those calls that come in. Again, this isn't a flat fee service where you're paying for staff waiting for calls. In this case, be it print mail, you're only paying by the piece that goes out, and on the call center side, you're only paying when the phone rings and we answer a question. So complete handling of all those calls, emails, reporting back to you. And again, just overall, we're in touch with you constantly. If you have any changes that are coming up, if you have maybe a corrected 1099 that needs to go out, or perhaps it went a little bit later in the month than expected, we can again kind of handle those volumes coming in to both from a call center standpoint as well as email traffic that comes across. So Corey, do you want to walk through this one? Yeah, thanks.
Yep. No, I'll take this one here. So, so how are we ultimately helping you, right? And where are going to be the main benefits? If we start with the call center side, every company is set up differently. And what we have found out there is not every company, has their own owner relations department that's specifically there to field all the types of calls and questions that come from owners. A lot of times we see companies, small, medium, and sometimes even large, where when an owner calls, those inquiries get directed to different departments, whether it's a land question, whether it's an accounting question, it goes to the accounting department, right? So as you're working your day and you get these calls or emails that come across your desk, right, that's going to impact your time on focusing on other higher value tasks or activities within your day, right? We focus on right now kind of your year-end accounting, working with auditors, working with closing books. There's just that constant pull that an owner inquiry comes through and we got to get to them, right? So one thing I bet we could all probably agree on is, how much time is that taking away? What would that time equate to cost, right? And even more so, what's the opportunity cost that's lost, right? So if you're spending a couple hours a day managing different calls and inquiries coming from those owners, well, if you had 2 hours back to your day every day to continue focusing on the task you're working on in that moment, or just other meetings that you're having internally, how can we make sure you have that time and there's not going to be that disruption, to your process? Secondly, and to piggyback off what Steve said, a lot of this is also about, making sure your relationship with your owners is a positive one and that your owners are happy with this, right? So when you have over 90% success rate on first calls live and over 80% of those calls are answered immediately for those owners are able to get that kind of that instant gratification. I think kind of as a society, we've really, aside from oil and gas, we've really become a culture that, when we have questions, we really want them answered now, and when we're told that we have to wait 2 or 3 business days or sometimes longer to hear a response, right? what's the nature of that owner do, right? They might be a little frustrated. Sometimes they'll call back and think that they'll try to get a hold of somebody else, right, that can answer their question quicker. So, if we can be that front line and take on those calls and do it at that type of rate, I think we'll only improve, the owner's relationship with you as the operator, right? And of course, being as a branded agent for you, it's not like Enverus is taking any of that credit. It's just going to be simply to the oil and gas company because that's what we're representing ourselves. And lastly, on the call center side, just from the lower cost of that support, right? It all comes back to having that time back to your day so you can focus on those tasks. What does that ultimately mean to you all, right? And if we looked across the entire organization, how much time on a given month is the company spending on answering owner inquiries, or during those tax times, or seasons or mergers and acquisitions when the call volume is going to spike up exponentially, how much time is ultimately taken away from the company staff to focus on other things that they need to be paying attention to. So I think a lot of people on this call could just have that resonate very quickly on, time is money. Now, each individual on the call would say it might mean more to the next person just in the amount of owners you have and the amount of call volume, but everybody knows that getting time back to their day and not having to really stress about that is really invaluable. From the print and mail side, kind of same thing, but we see this a lot, right? If there's notification letters that have to go out to folks, I don't want to say there's ever really a scramble, but it's, hey, we have to get something drafted. We got to get all this to the printer. We got to deal with postage and stuffing these envelopes, right? Time is critical. Tax season, we know how much time people spend stuffing and mailing those envelopes. And even if you just go to the monthly routines of joint interest billing statements, revenue check detail, I know there's a lot of parties people like to throw internally when it comes time for that revenue check run, and they got to spend their full day. But when you take that, amongst the number of people that are, having that event and stuffing all those envelopes, what could we have done with all that time, right? And so it can be hard to really calculate what that cost really is worth because you got to bring in the opportunity cost. But if those are just things that, we can take off your hands and make sure that they're getting out, in a timely fashion that's meeting your needs, the information's getting to the owners and they're getting exactly what they need, right? It's all about reducing that stress, reducing that burden off of you as the operator. Steve, you have anything else to add to that? We can go to the next slide. There we go.
Yeah, no, I think that's key, right? It's oftentimes people think of just the hard number, perhaps, of if I do choose to outsource a given solution, what's the number before me? But it is very important to, as you mentioned, Corey, to walk through the opportunity cost of here's what's not getting done while we do this types of work, and not to diminish by any means the value of representing the brand both from a print mail standpoint and live when from a call center agent, but that is not revenue producing. It's maybe not moving strategically things forward for the oil and gas companies. So just again, kind of keep that in mind. We can definitely help you make the case of why this is the right path to pursue. But I would love to have that conversation with you.
All right. So what this slide is showing here is a bit of just our support network of everything. And even though we're branding this around EnergyLink, and Enverus has taken a direction of doing more owner relations around the EnergyLink platform, as Steve said earlier on the call, we can tie everything to whether it's the EnergyLink platform or even your existing OilDex owner relations site for those who are utilizing that today. But what are we ultimately trying to achieve, and how are we integrating as Enverus these managed services within the product? And I think, to me, this is one of the biggest differentiators out there from any just third-party print mail company who's going to mail statements, or any third-party call center company that can just field calls. Because we own these platforms, we're able to integrate so much, train our staff around these platforms. So over on the far left, you're going to see roughly from EnergyLink, and that's what I'm really going to focus on this slide. As of today, we have roughly 470 JIB operators hosting their JIB detail. we've kind of found that to be around roughly 85% of the wells in the U.S. On the revenue side, we have roughly 290 owner relations sites or operators hosting revenue. This number is growing basically by the month. I could argue by the weeks, because we're combining those networks, right, with Oildex and EnergyLink. So we're adding all of those Oildex operators. We're adding that revenue data to EnergyLink. So that number is definitely going to soar north of 300 any day now. And obviously, coming from my background, being on the EnergyLink side, we always have fun trying to get as many revenue operated hosting folks to the same number as JIB. So really, the network is only as strong as, you know, the people utilizing it, and the more you have, the better network it is for everybody. So now, as an operator hosting this data on EnergyLink, how are we tying call center, print, and mail? So what we've already done since the EnergyLink acquisition, we've already trained all the call center agents on the platform. So a lot of those tier 1 level questions about how do I read my check, user ID, password information, what does this mean on my check, things of that nature. The call center team is already trained fully on the EnergyLink platform, and again, as well as the Oildex and legacy owner relations sites. The print and mail side has a lot of integration that's been occurring and a lot of really cool things happening in a short time frame. And what we're realizing is a few key things for the industry. For one, we want to provide consistency for your owners. So there's a lot of companies that host their detail on EnergyLink. For those that do, you know that EnergyLink has their own PDF, and it's just a standard template that we're placing the data in. What we're trying to do is keep it easy on the owners. So regardless of the statement they see from any operator, it's going to be in the same format. The data obviously would represent the same as your hard copy, but if I'm an owner and I receive 10 different statements from 10 different operators, how nice is it that it looks in one format across the board? So with what we can do on the print and mail side is EnergyLink can already generate and have a print-ready PDF in that EnergyLink format that can go out the door. So that way, when your owners receive a hard copy in the mail, and then one day they do register and log to EnergyLink, they're going to see the exact same format, and it keeps that consistency. We all know that everyone uses different accounting systems out there, and every accounting system has a different format, right? So companies host on EnergyLink, but what they mail out the door is going to come from their accounting system format. So there can be that difference between the two. So we're trying to help marry and bring that consistency for owners. So what they see today in the mail is what they ultimately see when they log into EnergyLink. The second component, and this drives immediate cost savings for companies, EnergyLink already knows who's registered and not registered to the system. So if you send to 5,000 owners and 1,000 of your owners already registered EnergyLink, EnergyLink already has the built-in capability, and this is already integrated with the mailhouse, that we can mail your statements to the unregistered folks only. Something I've seen a lot over the years is companies will load their data into EnergyLink. There's all these owners that are getting registered, and that's great. But when it comes time to mail the statements out, when it's coming from the accounting system, they're mailing every statement to every owner, regardless if they're registered to EnergyLink or not. And a lot of that has to do with the accounting systems aren't integrated or tied into EnergyLink to know who's registered or not. All of that occurs within the EnergyLink platform. So because we already have the built-in application for generating these PDFs, when you load a revenue file or a JIB file, we instantly know who's unregistered or registered, as I said, and we can mail to those unregistered folks. So out of the gate in that very first month, we can reduce your JIB volumes of paper by 25, 50%, some cases more. On the revenue side, I've seen where in the first month, we've reduced the volumes out of the gate by 20%, some cases 40 to 50%. And so you're really leveraging off that network of all of those registered owners. And the whole idea in the end of this is that we're trying to get as many of your owners registered online, right? If we can ultimately reduce the print and mail, we know it's not going out of business anytime soon with the way the oil and gas industry is and with it being a paper-intensive industry and with these owners. I think we could agree, though, that if we can start finding ways to reduce that cost, even if it's by 10, 15, 20%, I think that's the huge cost savings. So if we're able to leverage that on the print and mail and provide consistency, that's something Enverus has seen very quickly since the EnergyLink acquisition, that we can provide that proper integration. And I think at the end of the day, this is going to provide a better experience for not just the owners, but you as the operator as well, right? So those are just some of at the high level, just some components we've done with the call center and the print and mail business at Enverus, and tying it around the EnergyLink portal. Today, we have roughly 80,000 owners tied to registered to EnergyLink. This number is growing significantly since the acquisition, and as more owners are becoming not just more comfortable with these online platforms, but now that we're combining the OilDex network, EnergyLink, and moving a lot of this stuff to EnergyLink, we're just seeing that uptick grow. One thing to note back to the print and mail, what comes with the statements to those unregistered owners, the very first page for each owner, they're going to see a welcome letter. And within that welcome letter, it's going to provide them simple and basic steps on getting registered to EnergyLink. But the key is we provide a unique user ID and password for each owner. So they can just simply go to energylink.com and register themselves and be self-serving that way. And we're seeing a huge drive. So by Enverus mailing these statements on a monthly basis, people are seeing huge traction and huge registration from their owner counts. Prior to getting acquired with Enverus, I think with EnergyLink, it was always a hit and miss. I think a lot of companies, when they were controlling the print and mail themselves, they would load to EnergyLink. Sometimes they would print and mail those welcome letters. A lot of times they weren't getting printed and mailed along with the statements. And really all I can tell folks is, you get out of it what you put into it. The more those letters, those welcome letters go out to your owners, the better success rate and the better traction you're going to get getting your owners to EnergyLink, right? So we're obviously trying to promote that other than just being a print and mail vendor who's going to mail the statements, right? So we're trying to drive efficiencies while we're doing that. And probably the last note I'll make to it, just to drive this home, for those who are aware of it with the EnergyLink platform or not, since EnergyLink is a multi-tenant system that allows owners to register once, and when they register with that one login credential, they can see all of their operator statements that provide on EnergyLink, JIB or revenue. So if I'm an owner and I receive 10 different revenue statements from 10 different operators, the operated community is trying to market collectively to get every owner onto this platform. EnergyLink is not built in individual silos, which makes people register, to each different site. Once they register, they're registered to see everybody. So if you're having a struggle getting one owner registered, but there's another operator that might be sending a statement to that owner, once they register, they're going to be registered to see your information as well. So it has a compounding effect on how these owners just start registering, and that's where the growth is going to go from 80,000 to 100,000. And of course, we want to see it getting up into the million range, where obviously we know the number of landowners that exist. So I've spent a lot of time on this slide, but I think it's just important that, and being the real takeaway, we're doing a lot as Enverus around the EnergyLink platform, and we're not just trying to add additional services just cause and checking a box, but how can we separate ourselves from any other vendor, who can provide these types of services? And I think that's what we're really trying to illustrate.
Corey.
So this slide, this is just what, a couple testimonials here from some customers that have utilized, whether it's the call center service or the print mail service, and of course some other names that are just utilizing it. And I think, there's different scenarios here that can occur, but we've all probably experienced them, or knowing that the landscape in the oil and gas business can always change, we can always come across them. So Montage Resources used to be Blue Ridge, and they actually combined with Eclipse Resources up from the Northeast. And what comes along with that is when these companies merge, you now have to implement one accounting system where both companies were using different accounting systems, right? You have different processes, you have personnel, and you're having to manage all of those different processes and procedures within a short time frame, right? But the one thing that's always constant and won't go away is owner calls, or making sure your JIB and your revenue details, your 1099s, all of that's getting done in a timely fashion, depending on, of course, when it falls of the acquisition or the merger. Those are always constant, right? So we have found that there's huge success and a huge need that when these acquisitions occur, companies need help, right? Because these processes, these owner calls are not going away during that time, right? And when we talk about critical tasks and high value tasks that you need to focus on, I think we could all agree that when you're having to determine which accounting system you want to move forward with, getting folks trained on that, implementing any new processes around it, that takes a lot of time. That's not going to be done in an 8-hour day, right? We know people that just work around the clock to meet those deadlines. So, if we can help these folks with managing their call center and being the front line for those owners has been a huge success. And that's what's really happened with Montage. Utah Gas, on the other hand, this is an example of a company that is a very lean organization. To start, they didn't want to invest the money into the infrastructure and the processes around mailing really any type of document if they didn't have to, right? So they needed somebody that they could trust and manage that process for them. So we find a lot of lean companies, Utah Gas is just one example, but there's a lot of folks out there like this. They just don't want to put that cost into things like that. And that's where we can just step in and really help. So Utah Gas has been a great customer to work with. We've been handling all of their print and mail needs. So, I think these are just two good examples. And they're not the only examples of what exists, right? Whether it's a lean company or when acquisitions occur. I think, everybody's going to say, regardless of a company size, we all go through the same processes on a monthly basis. And, more months than not, we all could use a little help to manage this type of information or when it comes to call center information. Steve, do you have anything else to add to what some of the customers have talked to us about?
Yeah, no, great summary here. And again, this is just a handful of accounts from a reference standpoint, but I think you kind of hit it on the head, Corey. So nothing to add there.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the takeaways here, right? We know during tax season, obviously there's going to be an increase in calls. There's going to be an increase in paper that has to go out compared to the normal months of the year, right? So how can we help you take that off your desk, right? As Steve was alluding to with call center print mail services, it's not a one size fit all approach or people are just sitting around and waiting to take calls and you're having to pay for that. It's really you're paying for what you use. So you can have a little bit of that cost predictability in what you're doing. To me, the third one really is the most important from what I see, and that's just removing the burden from your team, being able to get that time back in your day, right? And not just to you, but to your entire team across the organization. And at the same time, taking those call center agents. And one thing, Steve, I can't stress enough is how important it is that with our call center agents, having that background in oil and gas with land and accounting and being able to answer, over 80% of owner calls with answers they need, right? And I think that just really improves the relationship between the operator and the owners and just ultimately makes the owners a little more satisfied, right? And so really with that, we can be, flexible. And Steve, I think kind of on the call center stuff, I mean, when folks have contacted us, depending on needs, those are things that we can get ramped up very quickly for companies. And I know especially in this time right now, right, with I think 1099s went out in just the last couple of weeks, I'm sure the call volume has increased. So whether that's a seasonal need and requirement from the customers, or even more of a long-term relationship that we have, I think those are things we're quickly able to adapt and help the teams out. So, that's what
I'd say, certainly. Sorry, Corey, just wanted to add to that. Certainly the pressure's on. I mean, obviously we're here talking about the seasonal work for the tax season. Tax season's, underway. If you have a need, again, either from augmenting kind of current resources or simply you're just saying, hey, look, I'm gonna call timeout. I need some help here. Engage with us now. We can typically get a call center up and running in a matter of days to maybe a week, 2 weeks at most. So this is something that is very actionable. We can immediately step in, provide that relief for you. And again, as Corey said, the key to it is simply pay for what you use, and that experience is a huge time saver for you, because again, we're not just answering the phone and forwarding questions to you and just overwhelming you potentially through a different avenue, but we are seeing a resolution again on greater than 80% of the calls coming in on the first call. So definitely representing the brand well and meeting the needs of the owners. So great job, Corey. Thank you. Okay, and I think with that, we've kind of covered the highlights anyway and an overview of the solution. A couple highlight takeaways in terms of how this has impacted other peers in the industry. Would like to maybe open it up, Susie, for any questions that may have come across.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So as a reminder, you can just type in your questions to the questions panel on the GoToWebinar console here. I do have a couple of questions. So as far as for print and mail, what is the ramp-up time required for the print and mail service? Yeah.
So great question, and I'll give you the classic, it depends. And what I mean by that, there's a couple different kind of elements, right, to consider. I'd say that the longest pull, kind of going to start on that end, the longest pull is the printing of a check itself, so an actual check drawn on the account. And with that, that can take anywhere from about 45 to 60 days, depending on how quickly your financial institution can respond and kind of get past what's called a MICR test, which is basically just making sure the alignment is correct on the check base. That's by far, I'd say the longest item that we have. Not to say we, in some cases, we can shorten that up, but just kind of give you a ballpark. Let's just say it's 60 days or so for a check. For statements, if it's coming out of EnergyLink, as Corey mentioned, those are print-ready PDFs. Those typically can be slotted in less than 30 days from contract execution. So if we know that that's an interest for you, so whether that's a joint interest billing statement, revenue statements, even on the 1099 side of things, those are things that are very quickly done. If you have a owner letter, let's just say it's a one-off letter announcing either an acquisition, a branding change, etc., we get those all the time. Those can be done pretty quickly as well. So a matter of days to weeks, depending on the complexity and kind of what's going on in the queue. So very quick turns on all of these. Again, the more notice we have that we can prepare with you, we can kind of work in parallel to try to shorten some of those times up. But generally speaking, somewhere in that range.
The next question is, could you explain the pricing model for print and mail, the print and mail service? How does that work?
Yeah. So another good question, and it really kind of timely, especially when you're doing any kind of price comparison. So what you'll get when you engage with Enverus is a all-in price, and by that, that's everything from postage to check stock, where checks are involved, to the envelopes, so all the material, all the project management, etc. And basically what we give you is really two prices. One is a first page price, which is basically, can be anything from a cover sheet, it can be the check itself, but basically you're going to pay one fee for that first page, and then there's an additional page fee that gets added as well for any subsequent pages thereafter. And again, all of our fees are really all-inclusive, where again other vendors tend to break out give you a really low price up front until you kind of dig into it. and it doesn't include postage. So just kind of a caveat for you. Make sure you're asking for that all-in price.
So another question here. You guys have talked a lot about call center and managing owner support calls. Do you handle support calls from vendors as well?
There have been a couple instances where we've been able to provide that type of support. Really the key there typically is, do we have access to the underlying data that the vendor may be calling for? So on that one, yeah, I can maybe suggest, let's have a conversation, try to understand what it is, understand what the underlying services would be, and certainly something we'd be willing to explore. Once again, we've done it a couple times already.
All right, perfect. Any other questions, guys? Steve, maybe you can change the slide to the last slide so they can see who to follow up with in case they... There we go. So if you do have any more questions for us or want to set up some time to just learn more and have a one-on-one with Corey and Steve or Jesse, just email Jesse Atkinson. You can see his email address here on the screen, and he can set up a time for you guys to talk and hopefully get you started on getting some additional support. You know, tax season, we're in the middle of a crazy time right now, and hopefully you guys found this information valuable and helpful so that we can help give you guys some relief. So with that being said, I will be sending out a replay link for you to watch the webinar if you want to go over the material again. So reach out to us and let's have a conversation and see how we can get you started. Thank you so much for attending and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.